Hello.
Our story begins in the desolate lands of sand on Tatooine. Anakin Skywalker is speeding through the sands towards the last known location of the Tusken Raiders. It was probably the worst thing anyone could have led him to do. Anakin made his way to the camp without any fear of these raiders. He had no intention of taking his time. He was going to break in, get his mother, and then leave. These were the Tuskens who took his mother, and it would be the last mistake any of them ever made. Anakin went in without a sense of fear or shame. Inside the camp, the Tuskens were doing their normal things. Cooking food, sitting on guard, playing games, or simply sleeping. It was one tribe, one large family, and everything worked the way it needed to. Anakin walked up close enough to the fire to be illuminated in a dark, shadowy presence, but the Tuskens couldn't notice him. The dark robes covered him until the ignition of his blue lightsaber got their attention. The first few Tuskens made their attack until they were quickly slaughtered. With the lightsaber making its mark through the camp, there was no one around to save them. The Tuskens were fierce warriors, known for challenging even the likes of great dragons, but they were no match for Skywalker. The camp was small, and it was set aflame after each hut Anakin walked into was found to be devoid of any life. Anakin cut down men, women, and children as he progressed throughout the camp. His eyes had nothing but hatred in them, and there was nothing stopping him from killing these Tuskens. Their howls of terror and pain ripped through the silence of the night. Anakin, after ripping apart almost the entire village, killing just about everyone there, found his mother. She was tied down and very badly hurt. Anakin quickly pulled her down from the little contraption she was tied to. She was fading in and out of consciousness, but Anakin was able to get her some water, which was severely needed with all the dehydration she suffered through during her time with the Tuskens. Anakin picked her up and carried her out of the hut. Because she was fading in and out of consciousness, she could see the act of terror that her son had committed. She recognized Anakin when he first got to her, but she wasn't able to focus on him. Now she was seeing blurs of carnage and destruction. There were dead bodies strewn about, all of them in different kinds of shapes and sizes, and it was heartbreaking, even to a former captor. Shmi woke up in silence. Klieg was by her side, and he was very happy to see that she was doing alright. There hadn't been any mention by Anakin of what had happened in the desert. All they knew was that Shmi was okay, and she was alive, which is all that mattered. Anakin was inside of a garage-like area, tinkering with some tools. He was very relieved that his mother survived, but he was also on edge. There was always the back-of-the-mind type of thoughts that made him fear what could happen to her. He didn't want her to die after barely escaping. That'd be too much to bear. Padme visited him, and he went from what seemed to be calm to a state of madness. He told Padme that despite Shmi's survival, he killed all of them. Not just men, but the women, the children too. He slaughtered them like animals because he hated them. The rage that sat within him was always present, but never before had Padme seen this vicious monster that lay within him. She was by his side through it, but there was a genuine amount of concern over it for her. A couple hours later, Shmi would be able to remove herself from the room and go to the kitchen area where she found Anakin. She asked to speak with him alone, and when Padme, Beru, Owen, and Klieg got up, Shmi told Anakin that she was very thankful for him saving her life. Anakin told her that he would do anything to keep her safe. She was his mother. Shmi nodded her head and asked Anakin if she was having difficulties remembering something or if it was a dream. Anakin looked on in a worried and confused manner. Shmi asked Anakin what happened to the Tusken Raiders inside of the camp. Anakin trembled a little. He was already super expressive when talking about this in front of Padme, and he hoped that Shmi would just forget about it or wouldn't say anything about it to begin with. Anakin told Shmi that they were all dead. Shmi's face bore a slight frown, and she asked Anakin if he was the reason that they all died. Anakin jumped back a little, suggesting that he was trying to save her. Shmi shook her head with a sorrow and shame. She asked if that was what the Jedi had taught him to do, or if it was what she had taught him to do. The slight frown firmed itself and made its mark across her entire face. Shmi expressed that she was so thankful for him saving her life, but she also didn't want Anakin to murder a bunch of people for it. Anakin suggested that they were savages and they tried to kill her. He couldn't let them get away with it. Shmi looked down, and she told Anakin that no matter what they did, they weren't civilized. They were simply individuals on their own path, and she got caught in the way. The Tuskens had a reputation for a reason, and Shmi told Anakin that even though they weren't exactly friendly with anyone, it didn't mean he could just kill them all. Worry sat in her face, and she reached across the table and grabbed her son's hands, and told him that she was proud of him for how far he had grown in the last 10 years, that she missed him every day since the day he left, but knew that it would mean the betterment for his own future and his own life. She then stopped. She begged that Anakin never stoop to their level again. To slaughter them made him no better than any of them. Anakin was a Jedi, a grown boy, someone who was taught from a very early age what was right and what was wrong. She begged that he not let himself do something so heinous again. Anakin wondered why she was so focused on this, and we never learned, but Shmi had something that haunted her. As she held her son's hands, it sat in the forefront of her mind. It was a little boy from the Tusken village. He was slain in the arms of his mother. It made Shmi reflect on everything they'd been through together to survive, and how that could have very easily been their own fate. It hurt her so much to see that Anakin went so far out of his way to inflict pain on others, even if they had done something to him or someone he cared about. Shmi thanked Anakin again and then asked him to promise her that he would never go so far again. That he would never murder innocents no matter what advantage it could give him, if it was to save someone he loved or to protect those he cared about. There were always other ways it could be done. Shmi knew that her hut was at the edge of the camp. Anakin could have snuck in and snuck out. Anakin sat with this for a moment, taking it all in. His mother never changed, and from a certain point of view, he could understand where she was coming from. As his mother, she never showed any resentment or hate. She was always strong-willed despite the circumstances they found themselves in. Shmi knew that while Anakin was a grown-up at this point, that he didn't have to listen to her. But she was his mother, and she would tell him how she felt. Anakin and Shmi spent time catching up, and Shmi even got to talk to Padme again. This is when both Anakin and Shmi learned that Padme had been back to Tatooine to find and free her from slavery. This made Anakin fall even harder for Padme. It made Shmi very appreciative for everything that Padme, at the very least, was trying to do. Before they could continue their reunion, Anakin and Padme picked up and left for Geonosis. Anakin would bring up the conversation he had with his mother to Padme. He was curious on her thoughts regarding the matter. It wasn't the most common thing for him to do, but since Padme knew, he was curious if his mother was perhaps right. Padme was a bit apprehensive to bringing up the topic and talking about it. The idea of murdering so many people was pointless to her, even if they were nomads or essentially marauders, as so many would just describe them as. Padme sided with Anakin's mom on this, and in reality she told Anakin that while she was supportive of him, it was a bit worrying. Anakin asked why she agreed with Shmi, and she suggested that while it was human to feel the desire for revenge, and feel the need to hurt others because we ourselves are hurt, it doesn't do any good for anyone in the end. On a basic level, this was someone's emotions, or at the very least gaslighting someone. But what they were talking about was Anakin literally murdering a tribe of people. There weren't a ton of Tusken Raiders still alive, and while yes, they were hostile, and yes, they could very easily kill someone you loved, as Shmi said, it didn't make him any better than them. Padme believed that Anakin was a good man, and he had so much power, a lot of it she could never understand. She didn't have the Force like Anakin, no one did, so why use it to harm others? Even if it was to get what you wanted, what benefit would it serve? Anakin kinda sat with it for a moment, and Padme told Anakin that she wasn't trying to scold him or anything, she was on his side through and through. But if he wanted to have a discussion, she would be honest. It wouldn't help him if she wasn't. If there was something that she felt he needed to improve on, then she would say it. She continued and asked Anakin if he was a Jedi Selected One, or whatever they called it. Anakin nodded his head, reiterating what the title was, the Chosen One. Padme said quickly sorry before moving back on to what she was trying to say, that he was meant to be the best of the Jedi. It didn't mean he always would be, because no one was meant to be perfect, but at the very least he should consider how he uses his power. Anakin nodded his head and thanked her for answering him honestly. He was very appreciative of both the women in his life. Padme, especially because she was the one who was completely on board with him coming to Tatooine to save Shmi to begin with, and on top of that, she was also the one who suggested disobeying Mace Windu and going to Geonosis themselves to save Kenobi. And obviously, on the other hand, was Shmi, who was his mother. Geonosis would fly by, and immediately Anakin be thrust into the Clone Wars. A few times during campaigns, he'd be able to run to Tatooine to meet his mother, but Rex was cool with it, as well as Ahsoka. This helped Anakin a lot, and as the war progressed, and got a lot more intense, Anakin had a lot more internal fighting with himself. Several times he'd be presented with a challenge and have to choose whether or not to be patient. This came with Ahsoka, a lot. It came with the loss of R2-D2 and a skirmish with the Separatist fleet, and several other circumstances over the duration of the 3-year war. Anakin was also able to slightly modify his teaching of Ahsoka, but also in his own conduct as a general without committing just as many war crimes. There were obviously an assortment of them because it was Anakin after all, just not as many as there could have been. Keeping in contact with his mother really helped him through this. Towards the end of the Clone Wars, Anakin would face his greatest trial. He'd be tempted by the dark side, by Palpatine. The Dark Lord implemented nightmares into Anakin's mind. The first set were about Padme, and the second set were about Shmi. In the dreams about Padme, Obi-Wan was by her side when she gave birth, before she died. In the visions of Shmi, she and the Lars family were wiped off the grid by a group of pirates sent by the Hutts. Anakin woke up after these dreams, and rushed over to the common area of the apartment. Padme awoke and ushered herself over to his side. By this point, Anakin had gotten a lot better at communicating. Without his mother dying, he was able to communicate a lot more freely. This is because of the interactions with Shmi over the previous 3 years that weren't there before that. Shmi understood that despite Anakin being a Jedi, he needed to learn how to communicate with Padme, considering she was privy to their marriage, which is something that he was also able to do a lot more effectively. When Padme approached Anakin, he told her of the nightmares and how they were back to back and how similar they were to the ones before. Padme reassured Anakin, reminding him that the nightmares that happened before didn't cause any harm to anyone, aside from the Tusken Raiders he murdered. Anakin suggested that he was worried that they would be both in danger, and Padme asked what he would do to try and change that. She reminded Anakin that everyone was always in danger, and that he couldn't just save everyone. She continued reassuring him that she believed everything would be alright, and that he should rest his mind. He couldn't do everything and anything, and that's okay. No one can. Anakin mellowed out a little, but sleeping the rest of the night was a bit of a difficult task. In the morning, Anakin quickly went to Master Yoda, who was very unaware of the saving of Shmi Skywalker 3 years beforehand. He could feel the terrible death through the Force during Skywalker's rampage, but nothing more really set him off to what was actually happening. Yoda understood Anakin's fears. He had his own fears a number of times, and he wanted Anakin to remember that he should rejoice in those who were able to move on through the Force. Being that this situation did involve 2 different scenarios, Yoda reinforced a statement said to him a previous night. The Grand Master reminded Anakin that no matter how wise or strong with the Force someone was, it was impossible to be everywhere at once. Anakin seemed flustered and unhappy with the direction of the conversation, and Yoda noticed this. He never wanted Anakin to feel alone, and he was just trying not to isolate him. He was just sharing all the knowledge that had worked for him in the past after all of his years of life and loss. Yoda had to master celebrating those who moved on into the living Force because he saw thousands of Jedi die during his time. It was natural, and he had to accept it. He understood how difficult it could be, especially for someone who was young. In all honesty, Yoda assumed that Anakin was having visions about Ahsoka on Mandalore and Obi-Wan, who was about to be dispatched. Yoda thought for a moment. He reminded Anakin that he should be proud of how far he had come. This caught Anakin completely off guard, but Yoda continued. He told Anakin that those he feared losing would not want him to change himself or burden himself with something so far out of his control. Anakin asked what he could do to let go or just to try and move on, and Yoda gave some basic instructions. Anakin obviously didn't want to let go, but Yoda was starting to sound like his mother and Padme, or maybe it was the other way around. Regardless, Anakin listened to the instructions Yoda gave him, which were amplified by Anakin's fears. He was told to, when he felt the Force dragging him towards something or away from something, to focus, to feel, to think. The Force should be trusted as it flows through every living being. Yoda reminded Anakin to think back to his earliest teachings. Yoda thought he was paying attention. Anakin nodded his head and thought back to the little that he remembered. Yoda reminded Anakin of one crucial step, the trust that all is as the Force wills it. If he tried to upset what he feared to happen, he could likely cause it to actually happen. Anakin bowed to the Grand Master and thanked him for his time. This had Anakin stressed for days, saying goodbye to Obi-Wan who departed for Utapau, lack of communication with Ahsoka, and dealing with the constant visions. But every time he came, he listened to what Yoda said and trusted Yoda and made sure he followed through the simple instruction. Trust the Force. If he had the visions in Padme's apartment, he'd find a quiet place to meditate. If he was at the temple, he'd do the same. Of course, the time came for his interaction with who he learned to be the Dark Lord of the Sith. Without an angry reaction from Skywalker, Sidious was stunned to say the least. This allowed Anakin to keep it cool and suggest to Palpatine that he didn't care and he wouldn't tell the Council. This by no means was easy for him to do, but he kept his cool the entire time and didn't bat an eye to anything Palpatine said to him. This did leave Palpatine believing that maybe it was a lie, or maybe it was something else. He didn't let his guard down, but the Jedi didn't come. Maybe Anakin didn't really care, or he just lost interest in both the Jedi and the Sith. It would make it easier and more difficult. He could wipe out the Jedi, but he'd also have to try and turn Anakin to the dark side. Skywalker actually returned to the temple and told everything to Mace Windu, and informed him that Palpatine had no clue they were coming. Windu found this to be good, but there was also some genuine concern regarding Anakin's loyalties. But Mace wanted to trust Anakin. That was really the only discrepancy he ever had with Skywalker. He couldn't trust him. If Anakin would betray his friend, the Chancellor, to assist the Jedi, then perhaps he could be trusted. Anakin was ordered to stay in the council chambers, and so as he went up there, he began to struggle. It was really weird because he kept his composure for so long, and yet he was losing it so quickly. The Force inside of his mind was twisting, and then the visions returned, though they left him with a choice: go to Tatooine and save his mother, or return to the Republic Executive Building to save Padme. At this point, Palpatine didn't know the Jedi were coming, and he was simply preparing to twist Anakin into his pawn in his free time. It was working. Anakin was seeing his mother and her family killed by a group of marauders that kicked down the door to their homestead and burned them alive. He was also then transported to a vision of his wife dying in childbirth, and it hurt him just as much. Anakin got to his feet, preparing to leave, and as he did, he got a communication from Shmi. This can't be good. His wife told her that Anakin was having nightmares about her dying, and like any mother, Shmi told Anakin everything he needed to hear. This wasn't exactly what he wanted to hear, but not for nothing, it was very necessary for him to hear in this moment. Anakin listened to Shmi, and she reminded him of the Tusken camp. She didn't want him to do something like that again. She told him that there was no need to fear about the Hutts, but if anything did happen, which she didn't believe it would, she told him that she loved him with all of her heart. This did have Anakin in tears inside the council chambers. Shmi ended the call with a warm smile, and then something remarkable happened. Padme called him. Anakin wiped tears away from his face, and Padme asked if he was alright. He nodded his head, and he told her that he was thankful for her. She asked what was wrong, and he said that nothing was wrong, just the reassurance he received in the previous few days had been really everything he needed. Padme nodded her head and told him that so many people loved him and cared about him. He may have not seen it all the time, but it was true. The two of them talked and talked, and Anakin kind of forgot about the fight ensuing across the city because he was talking to Padme. But he did eventually get a communication from Mace Windu. He told Skywalker that he was very thankful for his honesty. The gouge in his face was very present. Anakin was confused, but Mace told Anakin to lock down the temple. Anakin didn't have time to ask why because Fisto told Windu they had to go. Anakin rushed from his seat and made his way down to the bottom of the temple. Everything seemed to be fine, but he made his way to the gates and raised the defenses so the temple could be protected. It was weird. The temple was eerily silent. Anakin then heard a cry. He started running as fast as he could. It was a Jedi Temple guard. His blade was to the back of Jedi Master Sindralik. Anakin ignited his own weapon, demanding the temple guard lower his. The future Grand Inquisitor turned around with a devious hiss and leapt forward. Anakin was quick on his feet, matching pace with the experienced duelist. It didn't make a difference. Skywalker was able to dispatch the Grand Inquisitor, and by the time he did, Coleman Kaj and Shaak Ti rounded the corner. They were very confused, but Anakin expressed that there was some sort of betrayal. Windu couldn't get across to Sindralik, who just simply didn't have his communicator on him by accident, and the first person he called was Anakin. Windu knew that Shaak Ti and Coleman were either sleeping or meditating by this point. Anakin was a night owl, and he would be the most feasible option. It was a good thing Windu trusted his gut on this one too. It turned out Sidious had died in the fight, but not before issuing out Order 66 to a number of clone divisions shortly before they arrived. No one knew which ones, but Fisto and Windu were able to kill Palpatine before he gave out any more orders. The key divisions were the 212th, the Galactic Marines, the 332nd, and the 2 Coruscant divisions, which was the 501st and the Coruscant Guard. They are both present on Coruscant, not actually stationed on Coruscant. It was a quick reaction, though ironically, both Obi-Wan and Ahsoka would survive their own individual ordeals, though because of the timing, Maul would actually be executed inside the Mandalorian sarcophagus. Regardless, the temple on Coruscant was under siege. Anakin, Shaak Ti, and Coleman Kaj made their way to the front of the temple, with a temple guard security force of 500. There were several Jedi Masters who joined them, as the knights and teachers helped get the younglings out of the main area. While Shaak Ti and Coleman were higher ranking than Anakin, he was the general, and he took command of the troops at the ready. He prepared a trap, and he didn't want to hurt the clones, but if the Jedi were in danger, they needed to be prepared. It took hours for the clones to break in, and when they did, Windu and Fisto had already returned. They were going to defend their home, and they did. Maybe it wasn't necessary, but it was their sanctuary, and even Anakin at this point was willing to defend the temple. Windu may have been injured, but he stood side by side with the other council members and Anakin as it defended the temple. The tragedy is, the clones, after spending hours trying to break in, were winded and tired by the time they breached. It made their assault crumble out from under them. With the attack on the temple visible from around the city, Windu told Anakin to go be the rest of the Order. They would handle it from here. Windu, as the master of the Order, had to go before the Senate and inform them what had happened. He, the other council members, and the number of temple guards would be going together to protect themselves. It would not be a fun occasion. The Senate was locked down and the Jedi were attempting to settle the peace, and a battle broke out. It led to the Jedi breaking through and informing the Senate members present that Palpatine had intentionally tried to order a mass execution of the Jedi. It was hard to believe, and the public by this point had turned against the Jedi. There was a standoff in the Senate building, and Mace along with the other Jedi knew that they would likely die in here, in these halls. They were surrounded by clone troopers, but the Senate, after some serious convincing, would suspend the order, but give the Jedi 48 hours to vacate the temple or be executed. This was followed to a T. The Jedi abandoned the temple and Coruscant altogether. Anakin didn't. Truthfully, no one knew where he was. But he returned to Padme's residence to make sure she was alright, and she was. She learned of everything that happened, and with Anakin's loyal perspective, the Jedi were seen in a positive light as trying to save the galaxy, at least in Padme's position. Anakin also no longer had any negative visions or nightmares, they just kind of vanished. His mother and the Lars family were never in any danger and barely interacted with the Hutts to begin with, so it was never a big deal. Palpatine was going to plan for that to happen, but it just never got that far. The few other clone legions with Order 66 were kept at a distance in the Republic until the inhibitor chips could be found and removed. The plot eventually unraveled after months, and it became public knowledge that despite their failures to maintain the peace, the Jedi were actually trying to save the Republic. To learn that Palpatine was trying to take over hit a lot of people the wrong way, and they felt no love or adoration for the formerly popular politician. By this point, though, it was too late. The Jedi had relocated and Anakin said his goodbye to the Order. Ironically, this was difficult for Windu. He was very excited to bestow the rank of Master to Anakin, but to each their own. Anakin joined Padme on Naboo, where she retired from politics after appointing Jar Jar to fill her seat in the Senate. With Jar Jar guided by Chuchi, Mothma, and Organa, he would fill the role of her high-stature seat in the Senate very well. After Luke and Leia were born, they were brought to Tatooine to meet Grandma and Pop-Pop. Of course, Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, Rex, and Yoda would have their chances to meet the twins and see the establishment of the newly opened Weds. Leaving the Order wasn't exactly easy for Anakin, and it did have its own toll on him, but he was greatly thankful, overall, for everything he had been through. There were ups and downs throughout his endeavor, but with the guidance and love of those he cared about and those who loved him, he was able to make it through, help bring balance to the Force, and see the galaxy rise in this new era. And that, my friends, is our story. Again, special thanks to Galvin Gaming, Tristan, Darth Revan, Pimp Daddy Bane, The Last Jedi, Apollo, The Eternal Padawan, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Mad Medi Studios, Anakin 003, Fordo's Legacy Star Wars, Lemon Knight, Rex the Wolf, the man with 3 first names, Dark Saint 46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing for supporting the channel. Smash that like button if you want to support me in other ways. Go check out the Patreon, the link is down below. Anyways, let's talk about the story real quick. The main point I wanted to get around to is, the thumbnail's awesome by the way. Tillian killed the thumbnail, like it looks so cool. But I wanted Anakin to actually continue killing Tusken Raiders. I don't have anything against them, but I also thought it would have an interesting dynamic of having Shmi react to it and actually being like, yo, this isn't what I taught you, this isn't how you were raised. You know, that typical mom thing where it's like, bro, I didn't teach you to do that. Who taught that to you? You know, like, you know, let me go get the belt and beat that out of you, like that kind of thing. And so I wanted that dynamic between Shmi and Anakin to exist, but I also wanted this inverse to happen in Revenge of the Sith, where there's this duality where Anakin has to choose between his mother and Padme, which is kind of effed up, not for nothing. Like, oh, if you save Padme, then you lose your mother. If you save your mother, you lose Padme. It's kind of screwy, but it sounds like a Palpatine plan. And the main thing that stops him from that is just the communication. That's something I emphasize a lot about Anakin, and that really is something that just would change. Like, if he had a therapist, the therapist would be like, yo, you have to talk about your feelings. And then he would just be like, you know, emotionally develop. And that's kind of what I was going for here, is aside from the fact that he actually saves his mother, which does huge psychological work for him, just being able to communicate with her and then with Padme right after that allows for the relationships he has with other people in his life to actually grow and further themselves. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the like button. I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.